Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to be working in the chair. I have a client who last week had a fall, tripped, tumbled, knee bruise, wrist bruise, thankfully nothing broken, but recovering from a fall, recovering from any kind of injury, movement is still so important. But it's important to be able to move within what our body will allow, especially following the rules of pain. So sometimes after having a fall, getting on the floor makes it difficult to move. So today we're going to be moving in a chair, a little bit easier to navigate positions that are not painful and then explore from that standpoint. So that's what we're going to do. Full body joint mobility, largely from our chair with a little bit standing up at the very, very end. So let's get started. So we're going to start with our crocodile breath, making our nice big C shapes with our hands, placing hands below the rib cage and above the hip bone in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. I want to make sure that we are not on top of bone. I don't want to be on the hip bone or on the rib cage. I want to be in between both of those spaces. The thumbs are going to go in the back so that you're able to get some touch onto your low back musculature. Index fingers are wrapping around to the front in order to get some contact with the abdominal musculature. Palms are pressing into the side body. So we have 3 points of contact in which we get to assess the quality of our breath. Where we're doing crocodile or balloon breathing. So I want to imagine that abdominal wall on our inhale is expanding out and away like a balloon. And I want that breath to come forward into the belly, back into that low back space, and out through the sides, through the side palms. So we got those 3 points of contact. I want to see if we can you feel that expansion of the balloon out and away with even pressure. I don't want more pressure going forward than we have going out to the sides and into the back, if possible. At least that's what we're kind of assessing for. So on our inhale, we're going to breathe into that abdominal wall and push out on our hands. On our exhale, we're drawing our navel into our spine, and I want to, like you're trying to touch your spine with your belly button. And we'll get a good 5, 6 nice full breaths. And with each inhale, we're seeing if we can expand that wall a little bit wider. As you inhale, you're filling up that abdominal wall, filling into tension. You may notice some tension in the shoulders and the neck as well. On your exhale, as you draw that navel in, allow your shoulders to relax, allow your neck to relax, kind of allow that tension to drop off as much as you can. Focus that tension to the abdominal wall. Nice big inhale, expanding out and away. Exhale, feel that tension kind of relax from the shoulders, like it's dropping down to the floor. And as you get that breath nice and synced up, we're going to continue to use that breath throughout the rest of the session. So continuing to breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. We're going to start with our figure 4. Now, since we're dealing with a fall, there might be some pain in the knee. So the first thing is just kind of getting a little assessment of, can we even get an ankle up onto a knee, or is this painful? If it's painful, then you're going to have to skip this particular part of the session and come back to it. This is something I would work on every day until you're able to get that ankle on the knee without the opposite knee hurting. If this is not painful, then I want to switch and do the same thing on the other side. I want to make sure that this is not painful before we get started in this movement. And in fact, we're going to just do 3 to 5 reps of alternating our figure 4 from one side to the other side. And as we're going back and forth, kind of notice which hip feels a little stiffer and a little tighter. You can notice the height of the knee. Does the knee sit a little lower on one side and a little higher on the other side? My right knee is my surgery knee. I've had 5 surgeries on the right knee. I've only had 1 on the left. This knee sits a little higher. This hip, posterior part of my hip, is a little stiffer. So we're going to pick whichever side is the stiffer, tighter side. So for me, that's my right side. From here, we're going to work on light folds. Actually, we're going to scratch that. We're going to start with light knee mobility. Inhale, we're going to lift the knee up towards the ceiling. Exhale, very gradual reach of that knee down to the floor. We'll do 5 up to 10 reps. Again, I want to make sure that this is not painful on the knee or the hip or the low back. And going nice and slow. I'm going to stick with 5 reps, and then we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. I want to sync this to our breath. Nice slow inhale as we lift up to the ceiling. Nice slow exhale as we reach down to the floor. Since we started on the tighter hip, this hip should feel a little bit more mobile. Although notice, does it feel tighter than the other side when you're reaching down? Is it just more mobile when you're lifting up? There can be differences in how that tension is on one hip. You can have just as much tension on both hips, but one might be tension holding your hip high. The other one might allow that knee to drop low. After 5 reps, we're going to switch back to the other side. Now we're going to start working on light folds. I want to think like we're a waterfall with our hands. As we exhale, we're allowing that waterfall to very slowly drop down to the floor. On our exhale, inhale is bringing it back up to tall. And with each exhale, we're very slowly seeing if we can go a little bit lower with our fingers and dropping through our chest. Making sure that this is not painful on the knee or the hip. So we're only going as low as we can go without going into pain. Now we're starting on the stiffer side, so I'm assuming that the stiffer side is more than likely the knee that has a bruise to it. So if there is going to be pain, it's more than likely going to be on this side. And once we get to 5, we'll go ahead and switch to the other side. Now, I still want to go through this slowly. Just because this is the non-stiff side doesn't mean it does not have pain in it. So I want to start easy and slow. And again, with each one, we're seeing if we can drop a little bit lower. Can we get the chest a little deeper? Can we let the hands reach to the floor a little bit lower? This does not need to be forced or forceful. This is nice and easy. It should feel good and juicy. Once we're through with 5, we're going to switch. We're going to let both feet come back down to the floor. And now we're going to get into some bowls of soup, getting into our shoulders. Let the hands drop down to the side. Spread the palms as wide as you can, and then spiral them up towards the ceiling. I want that spiraling to come through all the way up to the bone. I want to feel that the ball of the humerus, ball of the arm bone, spinning around as much as it can to turn the palm and the elbow pits up to the ceiling. And notice how that also helps to lift the chest up to the ceiling. So arms are down at the side, but palms are spiraled up to the ceiling. Keeping those hands spread as wide as you can. And we're going to alternate one side to the other side. Spiral, that palm spiraled up, we're going to turn that thumb down towards the floor and see how far can we spiral that long bone in the shoulder socket, and then spiral it back open to the ceiling, and then the same thing on the other side. Nice and slow. I want to really get a feel for the way that ball of the humerus spins inside that shoulder socket. Notice if it is gristly, clunky. Is it is it grindy on one shoulder more so than the other? Or does it just feel stiff? Does it feel like you can't go as far? I have more mobility on my right shoulder than I do on my left shoulder. Internally, my left shoulder moves pretty good. Externally, I feel it gets stiff. It's a little harder to get that last few degrees. But it's not very grindy or clicky in this particular position of my arms. So we're going to now try raising our palms up to the ceiling. If this is painful in the shoulder, find an angle in which it is not painful. If you can bring it up to parallel, then we'll come all the way up to here. Palms are spread, facing the ceiling, doing the exact same thing. Just spinning that long arm bone in the shoulder socket, working from one side to the other side. And this position is a lot harder on my left shoulder than the previous position. It's not quite almost not quite grindy, not quite clicky, but definitely more tight and restricted. Sometimes my left shoulder will have a little crepitus to it. It can be a little, not smooth is probably the best way to describe it. Good. After 5 to 10 reps, we're going to let our arms drop down to the side. Now we're going to get into our pelvic tilts. I'm going to change my orientation so that I'm a little bit easier to see. Feet are still nice and flat to the floor. I want to be nice and tall, head over shoulders over hips. And we're going to come back to our breath, breathing into our crocodile breath, feeling that nice expansion of the abdominal wall. And then on the exhale, drawing that navel into our spine like you're trying to touch your spine with your belly button. And as you're inhaling, let that breath move more forward into the belly so that you get a little bit of sway in the low back. And as you exhale, drawing that navel into the spine, allow your pelvis to scoop. But I want to make sure that scoop, I want to keep the head and the shoulders over the hips. So I don't want to rock forward and rock back. This would not be a scooping pelvis. This is my whole body going forward and backwards. I want to feel that pelvis scoop underneath me. Imagine your tailbone is a shovel and you're digging into sand with it. As we do so, we should get a little bit of stretch into that low back. Then on our inhale, we're letting that belly expand. We're getting a big extension in that back, getting a big sway in the back. If the low back feels excessively tight, then go slow. This is a really good rhythmical movement to work on throughout the day, but you have to stay within the range in which it is not painful. My range right now is pretty good. I have a little bit of tightness in that low back, but it's not painful, and I got good range. There's days where this is incredibly stiff, and it's painful, and I can't go very far. In those days, I still do this movement, but it looks different. It's not as big, and I'm moving a lot smaller. I'm going just as slow. So if this is a painful movement, don't try to make it big. You're moving within the boundaries, within the barriers of that pain. If it hurts going into extension, then you're not going to push too far forward. If it hurts as you scoop, then you're not going to scoop too hard or too sharply. Keep it painful, but get that movement in there. This is helping to coat the joints of the vertebrae with synovial fluid, and it's kind of grooving, getting their groove back on. Now, if this is not painful, I want to start to accentuate. I want to continue to scoop. See how rounded in that low back can we get. I'm still trying to keep my shoulders and my head over my hips. As we inhale, how far forward can you tilt without getting pinch or pain in the low back? And now I want to start to bring back in our bowls of soup. So arms are coming out to the side, Palms are up as we're breathing in. As we exhale, we're going to reach the hands forward and we're going to turn the thumbs down and spiral them. So I'm reaching forward as I'm scooping so that we can start to get this stretch into the upper back. I want to get the eyes kind of fixed on it, the point on the wall out in front of you. So look out in front so that whether you're tall with your palms scooped up or you're exhaling and rounded back, your eyes are fixed on that same point throughout this movement. And we're basically just doing a seated cat-cow at this point. Nice inhale as you get tall, palms up to the ceiling. Exhale, draw that navel in. Make that belly button touch the spine, but you're reaching forward with your fingertips and your eyes are staying fixed on that point in the wall in front of you. If this is not painful, this is a movement that 10 reps or more at a time. It's going to feel really good, have a lot of value as far as bringing some good mobility into the body. All right, so now we're going to allow our arms to drop down to the side and we're going to grab the chair, the seat of the chair, so that we can pull our shoulder blades down to the floor. As we do so, spiral your elbow pits out and away. So I'm grabbing the chair, but then spiraling the elbow pits. So my elbow pits are facing out, and that's allowing my shoulder blades to drop down on my rib cage and for me to lift my sternum tall. I want to get as tall in the chest as possible. It's like I'm trying to lift myself off the chair, but my hands are holding and pushing my shoulder blades down. The more active the shoulder blades are pressing down, the better we're going to get. We're going to work on neck mobility, so that's going to get us better neck mobility. If the shoulder blades are allowed to float up as we're doing our neck mobility, we're not going to get the same quality of movement. So I want a good grip, spiraled elbow, pull those shoulders down, and then nice and tall in the spine. And we're going to start by checking our blind spots. Slow exhale as we look over the right shoulder. Inhale as we come back to center, and then exhale slow as we look over our left shoulder. Ooh, and my left shoulder is tight compared to the right. Notice which direction is harder, more challenging, tighter, stiffer. Is it painful? If it's painful, then you got to back off and not move so far to the point where it hurts. You got to stay within the range of motion that is non-painful. My left side is tight, but it doesn't hurt. It's just very stiff. Right side feels really loose. Actually have good range of motion. I'm not getting quite as far of a rotation going to my left. Which kind of tracks for some stuff that I got going on in my neck and my shoulder on the left side. Next, we're going to do our tilts and lifts. So it's a light tilt. I don't want to drop my ear like I'm trying to touch my shoulder. I'm just very lightly tilting it towards the shoulder. Opposite ear, I'm reaching up, lifting like I'm trying to touch the ceiling with it, or imagining there's a piece of string, lifting it up. Again, hands are pulling the shoulder down, so we should have downward traction in the shoulder as we're lifting that ear. We're going to exhale as we lift, inhale as we center, and switch to the other side, exhale as we lift. Again, notice how does this movement feel on the left side compared to the right side? Is it one side feels stiffer, tighter than the other? Or does one side feel easier to control and the other side feels more difficult to control? That's kind of what I'm experiencing on this left side. I have good motor control lifting the right side. I have poor connection on the left. Very hard to describe other than just saying it's a poor motor control, poor connection. It's hard to even feel a stretch in that area, which is a pretty strong indicator that there's some stuff going on. If you have poor motor control or it's incredibly tight and stiff, those are going to be signs of some instability within the area that you're currently working. Next, we're going to get into our glide. So in glide, I want to keep the cheekbones even on the same plane, and I want to keep the head perfectly facing forward. I don't want the head to turn, and I don't want the head to tilt as we do this movement. This one is glide, so we're trying to keep the cheekbones on the same plane as we just glide the head towards the left shoulder, then back towards the right shoulder. Again, continuing to hold those shoulder blades pressed down. Exhale as you glide to the left. Inhale as you come back to center. Exhale as you glide to the right. This one is easier to do if you're facing a mirror so you can see yourself or looking at yourself in the camera. And this is a movement that I really want to work on being as perfect as possible. So I want to avoid any kind of light turn of the head where our forehead turns to the side that we're going, or a tilt of the head, or a combination of tilt and rotation as we go side to side. So when you're looking in the mirror, can you keep your face perfectly flush with the mirror? Can you keep your head perfectly stacked so it doesn't tilt? The last thing we'll do for the neck is we're going to do some shallow neck rolls. So we're going to do basically neck circles, but I want to stay shallow with it. So we're going to very lightly drop chin to the chest. Then the right ear will drop to the right shoulder. Then we'll let our gaze look up to the ceiling, and then left ear to left shoulder, and then chin back down to chest. And we're going to continue to work in that direction. I gave you 4 points, and we're going to slowly turn those 4 points into a circle. So we're going to smooth it out. As we smooth it out, and you can feel what the non-painful range of motion that's available, you can then start to make your circle a little bit deeper. Nice and slow, the slower the better. We're going to do 5 circles in this direction, and then we're going to reverse direction. Notice where it feels tight and stiff in this circle. Notice if it feels a little crackly. If there's some crackle, then I don't look, as long as it's not painful, then I want to think about decrackling the crackle. Those areas where it feels a little stiff and crackly, we can really kind of groove into those spaces softly as long as it's not painful. Now let's go ahead and reverse directions, staying shallow again. So start just as shallow as you did with the previous side. Chin to chest, right ear to right shoulder. Oh, that's the direction I went last time, so we'll go left ear to left shoulder. Eyes to the ceiling, right ear to right shoulder, and then chin back down to chest. And again, as you're moving through it, slowly start to smooth the circle out, and you can start working to get deeper into that groove. How deep can you get that circle without pain? And how does it feel different on this side, or how does it feel the same? Good. All right, so now we are going to change our orientation on the chair. Got the chair facing the same way. I am going to turn, so I am now sitting sideways on the chair. My left hip is on the chair, my right hip is off, and I'm bringing my left knee down, trying to keep the toes tucked. I want the knee as close to underneath the hips as possible. If you find that you have stiff hips, or if that knee is painful, it's okay if that knee comes forward a little bit. We're going to work a little bit on our feet, doing some foot mobility. So I want to have the toes tucked. And the first thing, I will switch sideways to make this one a little bit more visible. I want to simply roll my heel out back and forth, kind of doing windshield wipers of the heel, which means I'm going to roll from the big toe, ball of the big toe, out to the ball of the pinky toe. And I want to feel contact with the floor with the ball of the foot, so that all the way through. So as the heel is turned in, moving more towards the midline of the body, I want to feel pressure through the ball of the big toe. As I roll the heel, so the heel is now perfectly stacked, I want to feel pressure through the middle of the ball of the foot. And as we roll the heel out, I want to feel pressure. So you got to add a little bit of downward push into the outside ball of the pinky toe. And then back across. We'll do 5 little windshield wipers. Then I'm going to change my orientation. And we're going to do heel press. We're going to push into the floor, driving the heel up as high as we can, and then softening the heel, letting that heel kind of reach back. There's not a whole lot of range of motion. Kind of think of this as the knee is driving forward as we push down into the floor, getting some stretch into the ball of the foot. We can do this adding in that light windshield wiper. So as I push through the ball, I can drive through the ball of the big toe. I can then rotate that heel out and drive through the ball of the pinky toe. On each one, I'm kind of changing that orientation of where I'm putting pressure through the foot. Again, this should be not painful. There should be some stretch. So kind of, and it should feel pretty good and juicy. You might feel that your quad is getting a little worked. So we're going to go ahead and switch to the other side. Again, knee is as close to being underneath the hip as possible. Toes are tucked so that we are loaded into the ball of the foot. And we're going to start with letting that heel wag in and out, doing just windshield wipers. Rolling out to the pinky toe, rolling all the way back into the big toe, and keeping pressure in the foot as we roll back and forth. Notice if this foot feels different than the previous foot going through this. Is it stiffer? Are there certain toes or certain pressure points at the ball of the foot that feel stiffer? Or maybe they're harder to get into contact with the floor. Maybe the hip or the foot is immobile and it's hard to find the floor with the foot in those particular spots. My left big toe is significantly stiffer than my right big toe. Once we've gone through those, we're going to add in driving the knee forward, pressing down into the floor, and then letting the heel soften as it reaches back lightly. There's not a lot of range of motion on this. This doesn't need to go far to be effective. And we can add in letting the heel roll out so that we're pushing more through the pinky toe, letting the heel roll in so that we're pushing more through the big toe. Again, notice how different does it feel on this side compared to the other side. Good. Once you've done about 5 to 10 reps, we're going to come back to the other side. So I'm now back to right knee is down, toes are still tucked if you can. If you're finding that it's difficult to keep those toes tucked, if it's painful, then it's okay to untuck the toes. Although this is an important position to work on. So if you have to take it unloaded, that's okay. But I want to continue to work on bringing that toe back underneath. This is important. We don't want to forget it. We don't want to lose it. So now we're going to get into our pelvis. So in this split position, we're going to get back to our breath. Breathing into our belly. Feel that breath move forward, getting that sway in the back. On the exhale, as we draw, we're going to draw our navel into our spine And as we do so, we want to scoop the pelvis so that we feel a little bit of a stretch through the front of the hip. This is more effective with the big toe tucked underneath. If that big toe is not tucked, it's going to be really hard to feel this stretch. Inhale, lets that belly fill up, pelvis is tilting forward. Exhale, drawing our navel in, and again, as if we're scooping up sand with our tailbone, scoop, feel that stretch through the front of the hip, feel that load through the ball of the big toe. If it feels tight, then work a good number of reps, 5 to 10. You may find that if the hip is super tight, the knee is a little bit forward. We can still get some work on that extension. But what is important is starting to be able to get that leg to slide back so that knee can be directly under the hip. This is going to be a lot more effective at mobilizing that anterior hip compartment. So position on this is important. But if you're dealing with hip immobility, you cannot force it. If you got to start here, we're going to slowly work over time. It might take days, it might take weeks to get that knee underneath the hip. We'll go ahead and switch across to the other side, and we're going to do the same thing. So again, toes tucked and loaded if you can. Inhale, filling up that belly, allowing the pelvis to tilt forward, big sway in the back. Exhale, draw the navel in as you scoop and ground through that foot. It's almost like you're pushing off, like you're going to go into a dead sprint, like you're driving into a sprint as you scoop. That's how it should feel, loaded into that back big toe. Again, inhale, feel that belly open up, nice big sway in the back. Exhale, scoop into it. How does this hip feel compared to the other side? For me, this is where my left hip is tighter than my right hip. Largely because this is where my left hip compensates for knee instability in my right knee from 5 surgeries, and I don't have a ligament in my knee. So this part of my hip is always working a little bit harder in order to create stability in my body. Once you've gotten 5 to 10 reps, we're going to switch back to the other side. And we're going to do the exact same thing from the lower body. Inhale, sway in the back, exhale, scoop. But now we're going to add in a reach with the same side hand. So I got my right knee down, it's going to be the right hand that is reaching up. And before we actually add too much of the reach, we're going to get into our nice scoop. I want to maintain the scoop, reaching up through the right hand. I want to spread that hand as wide as we can. And I want to do some bowls of soup before we get into our reach and lift. So I want to work on spiraling through that palm, seeing how far can I spiral in both directions. Turning that thumb in, opening up palm, turning the palm as far towards the back of my body as I can. And now I want to add in our reach. So as I spiral my palm towards my body so it's facing behind me, I want to let my shoulder drop down, and I'm going to breathe into the body, and I'm going to let the pelvis go. On the exhale, drawing navel in, scooping the pelvis, I'm going to reach as I spiral my thumb the opposite direction. So I'm spiraling palm forward as I reach up to the ceiling. Inhale, palm spirals back as I allow the shoulder to drop and get soft, releasing that hip. Exhale, scoops the hip as we reach and spiral through the arm. Inhale, spiraling back, letting the shoulder drop, releasing the hip. Once you've done 5 up to 10 reps, we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. So again, get that left hip in position. Nice inhale, exhale, scoop, and then maintain that scoop. And we're going to bring left arm up. Spread the hand as wide as we can. And we're going to work on spirals first, doing our bowls of soup. First thing is just making sure it's not painful, and then assessing the quality of that spiral. How well does that long arm bone spin inside that shoulder socket? And then we can start to add in the rest of our movement. So as we spiral palm to the back, I'm inhaling, I'm letting the shoulder drop, letting the pelvis go. Nice big sway in the back. Exhale, draws navel in, scoop the pelvis, spiral that palm forward as you reach up. Inhale, lets it drop and soften. I'm scooping, drawing navel in as I reach, so I should have a stretch, loaded stretch through the front of the hip, big toe, as I spiral that thumb in and reach up and away. Inhale, letting the pelvis go, sway in the back, shoulder softens. And after 5 to 10 reps, we're going to switch back to the other side. So as I switch back, getting into the exact same position, at this point bringing arms across the chest. I just want to touch hands on shoulders and maintain this position with my hands. We're doing everything else is going to be the same with the hips. Inhale, sway in the back. Exhale, scoop. Feel that load front of the hip down to the foot. But now as we exhale and scoop, we're going to turn our chest as far towards the back of the chair as possible. Inhale brings us back forward. We can get a sway in the back, let the pelvis go. Exhale, draws the navel in. Load the hip first, then add the rotation. And I want to go slow, and I want to squeeze into that last bit of the range of motion of the rotation. And I want to feel that stretch through the front of the hip, as well as some rotational stretch, maybe in the low back up into the shoulders. And once you've done 5 to 10 on that side, we're going to switch back across to the other side. Get nice tucked toes, arms are now crossed. Inhale, filling up the belly. Exhale, drawing navel into spine, loading the front of the hip and the foot. Continuing to exhale as we rotate towards the back of the chair. Inhale, letting it forward. Allow that sway in the low back. Exhale, scoops as we rotate. Notice, how does it feel on this side compared to the other side? The chair mobility work is part of what we're doing here is we're assessing gait mechanics still. So any differences between the right side of the body and the left side of the body are going to be relevant as far as how your gait is functioning. So I want to notice those differences. I want to notice, where does it feel tighter, where does it feel stiffer, where is it achy. All right, so at this point we're going to stand up and we're going to get behind our chairs. And the chairs can be here for stability or support. We're going to let our feet go nice and wide. And I want toes facing forward. So pay attention to the toes, because as we do this, what you'll probably find is that one foot wants to turn out a little bit. Do the best that you can to keep your feet facing forward through this movement. I'm going to bring the chair back in just a second, but for right now I want to show you the movements with the chair out of the way. We're going to do our side to side. These are called step under progressions. We're simply working to drop our hip as we sit to one side with that weight of our hip felt in our heel. Inhale, we come back up to tall. Exhale, we go to the other side. Now, as I'm dropping, I don't want my knee to drop going forward over my toes to where it kind of lifts my heel up. I want to reach back as if I'm sitting in the chair, so I have weight in the heel, hips going back, not going forward. This is part of the reason we got the chair in front of us, so that we have something to slightly hold on to. Now, as we're going side to side, I want to keep weight through the entire tripod of that opposite foot. So this foot, I don't want that foot to roll to where the ball of the pinky toe is lifting up off the floor. I want to maintain pressure all the way to the outside of that toe, which means as I'm sitting to my right, I have to intentionally push the ball of the pinky toe down into the floor. Same thing on the opposite side. By keeping that ball of the pinky toe loaded, that should increase the stretch that you feel in the inner thigh area. And with each one, we're seeing if we can sink down a little bit lower with control and without going into pain. And noticing how does this feel on the right side compared to the left side. If you're able to do this fairly evenly on both sides and without pain, next we're going to do is work on glide. So as we go to one side, I want to stay low, and we're going to glide all the way across to the other side. And as I glide, once I get to that end, I want to feel that loaded ball of the pinky toe, knee as straight as I can get it. Actively straighten the knee, actively load that outside of the pinky toe as you're going side to side. Nice inhale as you're in the middle, exhale as you move to the side. Keep your breath synced in with the movement. Good. And then we'll come up to a standing. I'm going to move the chair a little bit out to the side. And now I want to go through our 6 walks. If balance and stability are an issue, keep that chair near you, or you can use a staff for extra support on this one. In fact, I will go ahead and use the staff just to model it. So we're going to go through our 6 walks. We're starting out on the right foot, loading on the ball of the big toe. I want to keep weight off the outside ball of the foot. So I'm intentionally keeping the outside of the foot off the floor. The heel is off the floor. I'm only touching the big toe and the ball of the big toe. I'm stepping off to the side a little bit, and I'm simply shifting my weight onto that foot and then shifting my weight off of it onto the other foot. So as I load, I want to allow my knee to bend a little bit softly, and I want it to track as much as I can internally without pain in the knee. And then I'm pushing away. We're doing low-level 6 walks. We're not bouncing. I don't want to work on the spring right now. Nice and slow. Exhale, push. After 5 to 10 reps, we're going to continue with the same movement, but as you load, I'll continue to load to where you feel the inside of the heel touch, and then push off that heel all the way through the ball of the big toe. So now we're loading all the way, let that heel touch, and then push all the way out. Full extension of the knee, full extension of the toe, but I'm staying in contact with the floor. After 5 to 10 reps, we're now going to move to the heel. So I'm only touching on the inside edge of the heel. We're going to do the same shift, shifting weight onto it, allow that knee to soften lightly and track internal, and then push to shift your weight back. Again, super light, super simple. If this is painful on the knees, then you need to avoid this movement for right now. And you may find that you're a little, like, if your body's fatigued, if this is kind of new, that things are a little shaky, a little fatigued right now, they might feel like it's getting more difficult to control. We're gonna go ahead and switch to the other side. Loading the ball of the big toe, again, outside edge of the foot and heel or off the ground. Knee is going to track internally. I'm not allowing the heel to touch, and then just pushing off, extending the knee, shifting my weight back to the other foot, going back and forth. Notice my center of gravity is shifting to the front foot and then shifting over to the back foot. I want to feel that weight shift, and I want to feel pushing off that toe to shift back. Once you've done 5 to 10 reps, we're going to keep sinking into it so that you feel the heel touch the floor, and then you're pushing the heel off, coming right back into that extended toe position as you shift your weight back. You may get some significant stretch at the arch of the foot. Notice if it's bigger on the left foot compared to the right foot. And that's going to be pretty relevant to a gait mechanics. Once we get 5 to 10, we're going to shift to our inside edge of the heel. Again, knee is still going to lightly bend and track as we shift weight onto it. And then we're pushing off to straighten the knee, shifting our weight back. Another thing to pay attention to on this is, are any of these particular positions that we're working on, does it feel like you can accept more weight or less weight on the right side compared to the left side? For this particular movement, I feel like I can accept less weight on my left heel compared to my right heel. So those are important things to kind of notice as well. All right, we're going to shift back to our other foot. Now we're going to go to the outside of the foot. Loading on only the ball of the pinky toe side. Big toe is off the floor. Ball of the big toe is off the floor, and heel is still off the floor. Knee is now going to track out a little bit. Everything else is the same with our weight shift. Just shifting weight onto it, accepting as much load as you can. Exhale as you push off, shifting your weight to your back foot. Going nice and slow and under control. Again, we have our staff here. If it feels unstable, make sure that I want to make sure we are not moving into instability. Do not want to roll an ankle or fall doing our drills. Next, we're going to let the foot go completely flat, heels down as well, and we're going to roll all the way out to the so that we're on the edge of the foot, or the outside blade of the foot. Knee is still going to lightly track out. Now this position is a more prone position for an ankle roll, so be very cautious with how much weight you shift. Start small to make sure that you can handle it. We're still shifting our weight forward, allowing that knee to track out, and then pushing off to shift our weight back. Very subtle. We don't have to go super far in order to feel that load through that ankle space. But this is still very good for helping to build those ankle stability, especially after a fall. We want to work those ankles. We want to get those ligaments of the ankle to get back to being dynamically stable. And so they need to be able to start accepting and releasing load. And this is one of the best ways to do it, is to very gradually Add load, see how they're doing, test, challenge, make them adapt. Oh, still staying on that same side. So now, last part for this side, we're stepping to the outside edge of the heel. Knee is still tracking out. This position is going to be a little bit more right out in front, as if we're taking a step. Shifting weight forward and then shifting weight back. Let that knee track out as the knee softens. Extend the knee as you shift weight back. Now, if you're feeling shakiness in the legs from this, I would look at that as a really positive thing. For one, it probably means that this is new and you're challenging new neurology. That's a good thing. Let's work on this every day until it becomes easy, because then you know that you've actually upgraded your ankle stability. If things like this feel challenging, then going outside and walking on uneven terrain is going to be incredibly challenging. So this is a good place to work on building good neurology so that our bodies are really safer out in the natural environment. So I'm now on the outside edge of the ball of the pinky toe. Knee is tracking out, shifting weight forward, and then shifting weight to the back foot. Any kind of movements that we do in class that you find there is a weakness, an instability, or it's incredibly difficult, then the takeaway for those movements is this is something I need to work on every day and possibly multiple times a day for a period of time. Once we get to 5 to 10, now we're going flat foot. We're rolling all the way to that outside blade of the foot. Again, knee is tracking out, and since we're on that edge where we can roll an ankle, so we're being extra cautious. Shifting weight very slightly forward and then shifting it back. If you can accept a little bit more, then you can put in a little bit more, but make sure you are solid and stable. Once you've done 5 to 10 reps, we're now going to come to the outside edge of the heel. This step is going to be more in front of us like a normal stride. Knee is still going to slightly bend, tracking out, and then shifting off. There's not as much knee bend on this particular position, but I still want it to soften lightly. I want to move into it, get that load on the heel, and then push off onto our back foot. Good. All right. So last movement drill we're going to do is our standing clocks. We're going to go ahead and keep our staff for this. I got my staff in my left hand. I'm going to start on my right foot. I want to spread the toes as wide as possible. And this is important to have a tripod foot. So I need to maintain pressure through the ball of the big toe, ball of the pinky toe, and the heel. I do not want my foot rocking back and forth. If you got this action going on in the foot, that means you are working too hard. You are at an advanced position. You need to back up to a point where you can maintain good, solid, grounded foot. The foot is the most important part of this drill. So if you are not paying attention to your foot, you're not doing my drill. So grounded, spread foot. Lift the opposite foot. We're coming into a single leg stance. At this point, I want to think like we're standing on a clock or a compass. I'm going to go with a compass. I kind of like that analogy. So we can start to play with reaching north and south on our compass. And I want to think about how big can I make that compass? How big can I make the circle? How far forward can I reach to push the edge? How far back can I reach to push the edge? but I can only go as far forward or back as I can maintain a perfectly flat foot. If my heel's lifting up or rocking back and forth as I'm going too far forward, then that means I'm going too far forward. I'm not doing the drill. That foot's got to stay perfect, which means your movement may be very small. It might be a small circle to start with. That's fine. Now we can start to work our east and west, reaching out and away. When I go across my body, I want to reach behind. And I want to see if I can allow that hip to kind of open up a little bit. How far back can I get that back foot to go? Can I reach out? The knee is allowed to bend on this. Again, we have our staff for some balance and support, and we're seeing how big can we make that circle while maintaining a perfectly flat tripod foot. Good. We'll go ahead and switch, do the same thing on the other side. Nice spread, grounded foot. Coming into our single leg stance, can you maintain that grounded foot? Making sure that foot's not super wobbly. At this point, we can start playing with north and south. Again, only reaching as far as we can with a nice flat tripod foot. And with that tripod foot being flat, we can start to see how big can we make our circle. And once you've got good 5 to 10 forward and backwards, we can now start working our east and west. Notice if any of these positions, if any of the directions are easier on your left foot compared to your right foot. Again, super important when it comes to our gait mechanics. Areas where you find I can't do that position very well are going to be an area of instability in your gait. So that's an important thing to notice. So we did north, south, east, and west. We did our cardinal directions. We can add in our ordinal directions. I'm going to save that for another class. That was a pretty good amount, especially if coming off of a fall with some knee pain, potential back pain. I want to keep it nice and easy. So let's go ahead and bring our chair back in. We can sit our staff down. And we're going to finish up with a little bit more of our crocodile breath. So making our big C shapes, placing our hands below the rib cage and above the hip bone, thumbs in the rear, low back area, index fingers wrapped around into the front abdominals. Taking a nice big inhale. Start to feel that balloon expand on the exhale. Draw that navel into your spine and let your hands tighten up around your midsection to create more resistance for your next inhale. And then with each inhale, can you expand that balloon a little bit wider, a little bit bigger than the breath before? And we'll get 5 to 6 nice, big, full breaths. Just like before, breathing in, if you notice your shoulders and your neck getting tense, on the exhale, let them soften and relax. Let that tension drop to the floor as you exhale. You breathe into tension. On the exhale, let that tension go. At this point, we can let our arms drop down to our side and start to allow that breath to move up into the chest and the upper back. Same idea. I want it to expand like a balloon through the upper back, side, and chest. And then exhale. Allow any tension that you're breathing into to just drip down your arms onto the floor. You can bring that breath up into the neck, upper shoulders, breathing into tension. Exhale, allow that tension to just rinse off and drip down your arms onto the floor. And when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes, kind of check in to make sure they're not dizzy or lightheaded before you work on standing up.